Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Sharess, and I am your mentor today. And we're doing a series of master classes around entrepreneurship, empowering business success, and really just diving into different areas. And today, my focus is on leadership. And I really wanted to spend some time I've done a lot of leadership training for years. It's probably one of the things that I think no matter how much you do, you still need more. It's as a leader, there's so much that is on our plates. There's so many different things that we get to do as opposed to have to do. And I remember this question I had once, quite a long time, a while back, and somebody had asked me like, I'm having a problem with an employee and it's that employee's problem. And everything was like about that employee. And they looked at me and, look on my face and like, oh, it's my problem, isn't it? I'm like, absolutely. Every single thing that goes wrong or goes right in your business is your problem as a leader, as the leader of the pack, the entrepreneur, the mentor, the visionary, the global, whatever it is that, philanthropist, whatever your mission is, like it is the responsibility as us to lead, as leaders, to lead our team. And it is super hard. And when I say team, like maybe you don't have a team, but you may work with contractors for different things. You might have a website developer, you might have a social media person, you have temp or VAs, or even, if you're in the network marketing space, people you're bringing on or working with, or your upline, your downline, whatever it is. But there's always someone watching. And so that is such a important thing to remember, that as leaders, we need to lead. And you're a business owner self, and that the system or wants to blame sometimes the employees or somebody else for not providing us everything we need. And at the end of the day, it all does fall on us. And so we as leaders have to have that mindset, that expansion, the resiliency, the growth, the knowing that we need to impact, inspire, motivate, and all the things, right? So I want to go over a few things today in terms of, and I do have some notes I'm going to be peeking back and forth on, and some of the things. Now, I've been leading for, well, probably 30 years, but 20 years in my own business. This year started 20 years. And I can't say that it was all wonderful. I probably want to, I could cry and tell you how hard most of it was, and mostly was in growing with teams. That's been something that I struggled with for a very long time, and that's why every year I do leadership training, and I, have mentors and coaches, and oftentimes, there's certain areas in my leadership that I know I have to focus on. And for me personally, and every one of you, I want you to think about it. Where are the areas that you know that if you could grow as a leader, everything else would flow much better? And so with me, I realized I need to be able to delegate better. And if I could delegate better, then I wouldn't have to be showing up as much leading, but then I would lead by properly delegating. So, I'm going to go over some of that, but I'm also probably in the maybe next week, we'll do delegating in general. That's just one of the areas. So I want you to think of your areas of where, as a leader, you could improve. The other area for me that is something I know I constantly have to improve is communication. And I will tell you that it's probably 95% of the issues that we have in growing our business is in communication, and it's to whoever. And I see this on a daily basis. And so I really want to spend some time talking about communication. And it's not just like how we communicate, it's also what we're hearing. And what I see a lot, and I'm just going to go by experience because I work with a lot of, and have worked with all sorts of entrepreneurs, from multi-million-dollar businesses to the startup, the solopreneur, so to speak. And so communication is almost always the breakdown. I say almost always because nothing is always, right? And so oftentimes, here are some of the things that I tend to see. And I want you to write these down and I want you to think about it and see where have you broken those lines of communication. Now, before I do that though, the one thing as business owners we need to do is pull out the ego, check it off to the side, get it out of here. Ego does not exist today because none of us are perfect at anything. And everything I teach has to do with things I've experienced. That's just the bottom line, right? And so I had to check my ego. I have to constantly check it too. I have to put myself in check, give myself timeouts. I do call them timeouts. And know that we do these things as human beings. And so awareness and really understanding where our where we're a little bit weak at, or maybe not as strong. You could look at it both ways, but we all have weaknesses and strengths. Communication for me wasn't always a strength. In my mind, I saw a vision, I was ready to go, and I wanted to give like minimal things and like, come on, follow, let's go, let's go, let's go. And other people are like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I had to really slow down on my steps so that I could tell people everything that was in my mind, that I could share things in that journey. I share too much sometimes, and then that overwhelmed people. So it's like, I sometimes I feel like darned if I do, darned if I don't. I either don't share enough and people aren't happy, or I share too much and people aren't happy. But there's a happy medium, right? And that has to come with us building those strengths. So giving ourselves and yourselves the grace to be able to do the polar opposite while you find that equal balance. That's just sometimes what we need to do. And so some of the things in communication where I've seen is, and I'm going to give you live examples, where as business owners, I have so many business owners that don't even read the communication I send, and then have so many questions and are so frustrated. And all I have to say is, did you even read the second paragraph of my message? I explained that in details. And so that happens on a daily for me on things, really, unless I'm not working those days or unless I'm not communicating those days. And so there are so many examples of times that I've lined out bullet point. I've spent so much time putting so much detail into things. And then I will have people stop and say, I don't know what to do next. And I'm like, I know for a fact you did not read my message thoroughly. So part of communication is the understanding and appreciating of the details that people put into things to share. And I'm going to go with that side first, because there are so many times where it's the details that are missing for us to be able to succeed and for us to be able to bring in the people that want to work with us, right? You want to bring in people, they want to be able to follow you. And so being able to have those detailed instructions. And that same example happens with my employees sometimes, or contractors or whoever, where they just don't read or listen or, take the time to absorb the information that was communicated. And then there's a perception that something went wrong, or that the details weren't there, or, something happened the other day where somebody was saying like, I'm so confused and I don't know how to do this and I'm overwhelmed. And I'm like, did you watch the 5-minute video I sent with detailed instructions? And they were like, no. So that's one part of it. The other part is, are you as a business owner thoroughly communicating with absolute certainty and clarity what you need from people or what you want? And so that's another part in leadership that I see. And again, I struggled with that. I see a lot of that in especially startups or small businesses or solopreneurs, who, when you're used to doing everything yourself, then it's really hard to start to delegate or to give thorough instructions, because oftentimes the first thing that comes to your mind is, it's just be quicker if I just do it myself. How many of you have felt that before, when you wanted to delegate something or you wanted to pass on a task? You're like, never mind. It's going to take me so much more time to teach this person than it is for me to do it. But if you think about it, how many times do you have to keep doing it then when you could have taught it once or twice, and then eventually you no longer have to do that task. And so one of the thing that you're doing, right? So the communication is when that thought comes to your mind, that's the moment that you should know that you need to thoroughly document and communicate what I need in this so that I'm easily able to pass this on to someone else. And so, the root of everything, communication is probably why most businesses fail. Our failure rate is really high for businesses. So if you can master the communication part down and also like owning the responsibility of everything that goes on in your business. I also experience quite often that business owners, I want to spend some time on this, that business owners really have maybe a different expectation of who they're partnering with or who they're working with in terms of other people doing for them. So what I mean by that is oftentimes, like, if you're not clear on what you want for your business, if you're not clear on your steps, no one else is going to be able to be clear for you. Unless you're hiring a high paid consultant who's been there, done that, has done it, and you want to hire them to come and say, you give me your systems and I will follow everything you say and do, then that's when you rely on someone else, right? You know that they've had a proven track record, or you know that they're knowledgeable and you trust their knowledge, but that always requires, unless somebody or you're doing it on trade or a favor, that generally is a consultant or a strategist or someone who's going to come in here and tell you how to do it. And most businesses, most startups can't afford that right away, most of the time. And so I see a lot of the in between of where I don't know what to do. Can't you tell me? And I'm like, I'm not your consultant. I can't tell you. I charge people a lot of money to do that because it's my skills, my knowledge. And that's the other thing. I want you to look at this as when you value other people's knowledge, or when you don't value the knowledge of people, how are you valuing your own knowledge? I really want you to think about that. If the expectation is low or high of someone else, and there isn't a high value of what that person brings to the table, how do you value yourself then? I found that out the hard way because for many years, I didn't value what I did and my knowledge and my experience. And so I gave it away for free all the time. Like when I do these trainings, I do these periodically. I love to train. I love to teach. And I know there's times where not everybody can afford, to hire me as a consultant or to talk about these things. And so, or hire anyone else, not even just me. But the thing is that when I am putting on my brain to work for someone else, to build somebody else's systems, to tell them how I would do it, I know that is tens of thousands of dollars that I have invested in myself to get to where I'm at. And the probably millions of dollars I've lost, not probably, in learning all those mistakes that now gives me those better systems. So I want you to think about yourselves too, and how you're moving forward as a leader. Are you showing that? Are you confident in the skills and who you are, and valuing those that bring those different skill sets to you? Because that's how you're going to build those beautiful relationships with people who are going to work harder for you, work with you, help you grow, and allow you to build those dreams you want to build. So those are some of my thoughts on those. So communication is always a huge one. The others, let me see, let me go to my slide where I did a leadership masterclass last year, February, I think last year, for my community. So I still have some of my old slides. So leading with impact, these are some of the traits that I had put out, skills and traits. And what I had them do in this masterclass, so I'll invite you to do the same, is to write these down and then score yourself on how you feel you rank in those areas. And so one of them is, and actually, you know what? I think I could share my screen on this one. Let me, but it's in my, hang on a second. Maybe this will look good to share. I'm going to share really quick. Bunch of stuff on my screen. Okay, so because I like visuals too. And so vision, and I hope you could see my screen. Hopefully, yeah. Okay, so here are some of, when I talk about leading with impact, which I think most of us want to have an impact somehow in this world, even business owners that don't necessarily align or say that they want to create impact. I think there's a reason we all go into business. There's a reason we just don't, sit and have a 9-to-5 job and work for somebody else and build somebody else's dreams, right? There's some sort of impact we want to have in this world. There's something we want to share, teach, show. And so therefore, we're impacting people's lives, whether we're impacting the way somebody does business or their health or their systems or whatever it is, right? So number one is vision. And this is a part that I think a lot of people don't quite have their vision in place. And what I mean by, yeah, we have dreams, right? But dreams without action are nothing. They're just dreams, right? And so when you have that dream, that inner knowing, that calling, where do you see yourself in those steps? Like, so many people are confused about that part. Like, what is the vision you have for your business, for your project, for like every single thing with a clear vision of what the expectations are? What do you want done? You'll find that if you work with me on a one-on-one basis, I'm constantly going back and saying, okay, what do you want? What do you want to do with that? Where do you want to be? What does that mean to you? What does that look like to you? Right. And so it's used to stump me all the time. And, remember going through like Tony Robbins trainings. I've been through most of his like really big trainings that, I've been through Business Mastery. I've been through UPW many times. I've been through Date with Destiny. I did Leadership Academy. Like I've been through all of his stuff. And most of them are like $10,000 events that you go to. And done the Brendan Burchard years ago, his Leadership Academy, and high performance coaching, and done Maxwell, all sorts of stuff. And so I used to sit there in so many of them and like just be so nervous to not get called on because I couldn't tell you what my vision was on something. And so many people felt the same way. And so with a lot of those trainings, like I know I have to have a vision. I know I have to be able to pitch something for the future. Not everybody's going to align to it, but the beauty is you'll know who's aligned or not right from the get-go, because you're pitching your vision and where you see you going with what you're doing. And those that see that are going to jump on with you. And those that don't are like, okay, well, that kind of doesn't align with mine, or they can't see it. And that gives you, that's probably one of the best things we can do in weeding out too people that we don't want to work with or that might not be a good partner for us, is if we don't share the same visions. And so the next thing is strategic thinking. And one of the things about strategic thinking is that once you've got a clear vision, you really must think about a strategy of how you're going to put that into place, right? You have this vision. And so as a leader, it is up to you, unless you're hiring a strategist, right? Which we talked about a little while ago, who's going to come in here and give you the strategy. But if not, then you as a leader have to spend that time to think about strategically how you're going to launch. What does that look like? Or how, like we put a strategy together for everything we do now, because it's that important. If there isn't a strategy, then there's confusion. And again, one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs and leaders fail is in clarity and communication. So if you're not clear, which is part of, your vision and then strategic thinking, then how do you communicate that to anybody else? And that's why I have that in this order of priorities. And so really, I think that once you get vision and strategic thinking down, then the rest starts to like really flow much better, right? So, and then communicating it. We spent a little bit of time earlier on that. So communicating it clearly. So, for instance, if I need something done, let's say I'm starting a new project, I'm first going to create the vision. I'm going to create everything. I'm going to really sit with it. Maybe I'm going to talk to some mentors. Maybe I do it by myself. Maybe one of my coaches. It depends where I'm at, but I have my vision ready. Now I go get my strategy. Okay, this is the strategy I want to use. We're going to look for influencers to help us build this, or we're going to have a founder software, which is something I recently did. And then we're going to cap it at this amount. And then once that founder special's over, we're going to up the rate. We're going to get this amount more people. We're going to need to hire a team once we get to this amount of people or X amount of dollars. So really thinking about the strategy and where am I promoting this and what am I doing with this? Then the communication. So then my typical flow is then I write it all down and I create a document. A one-pager is what I call those, that really has that. This is the vision, this is our strategy, and this is how we all need to do this. And I really put it all together so that when I meet with my team, then we all, everybody, I can align everybody in one place, right? And then this is where the emotional intelligence comes in, because not everybody's going to align with everything we do. And so we need to be able to, even when we don't, even when we're confused or we lack the clarity or we're not sure, we need to have that emotional intelligence to like pull ourselves together, right? To be able to think outside the box, which goes into like resiliency as well, to be able to know what resources you may have or not have, to be able to pull this through, to not fall into defeat, and really know that to run a business of any sort, it takes a lot. It's not an easy task. Is it worth it? Absolutely, yes. But that, building those emotional intelligence skills, as I will call them here, is going to be probably it's the muscle behind it all, really, because I see so many entrepreneurs like want to crack or want to break because they aren't really sure what to do, and then they get overwhelmed, and then it's like, okay, they go into shutdown mode. Overwhelm will shut down the nervous system, right? And so being able to like get into that place, and what are you doing to keep that up? So making sure if that's something that you struggle with, that's your priority, then that you start to build that muscle. Like anything, right? It's about building a muscle. Resiliency. Resiliency is like everything, because in business, if you're not resilient, you're not going to make it, because it's still part of the toughest thing I've done in my life, right? And to be in business for 20 years, it's not easy. And it comes with ups and downs. It comes with major, not everybody, but most people have had major losses and a lot of wins too. But it's not that consistent paycheck, right? You've got to be working for that paycheck. You need to be strategic constantly. You need to be thinking about marketing and sales and lead generation and launching and your clients and community and communication and emails, and right, there's so much that happens, and all those fall on you, your operations, your systems, all of those things, unless you can afford to hire out and have experts in those areas. So being able to be resilient about it, and there are times I'm less resilient than others, and so it is, right? Because grace is, I don't have grace on here, but I should have that as one of them, is you also have to give yourself grace, not give yourself excuses, because I'm not an excuse type of girl. Give yourself grace and get right back up and get at it again. That's what resilience is. Delegation is another muscle. There are very few entrepreneurs, I will say, very, very few out of the hundreds that I've worked with that know how to effectively delegate off the bat. Even people running big businesses with big teams, I find that they're not that great at delegating. And so finding, like, if you are, there's two things to do about that. Is you find yourself an integrator, which is, could be like your COO or your operations director, your operations manager, or a highly skilled executive assistant, because an integrator is not a regular VA, right? Virtual assistant. It's really somebody that knows how to take direction, put it together, and make it happen, right? The integrator will integrate from what you want and from what happens, right? That middle, the integration between the two, filling the gap in the bridge. And so it's either having that or learning how to delegate effectively and efficiently. If you don't have somebody who you can just spit everything off to, and they are that highly skilled, it's not easy, right? Like a project manager is a kind of another type of person, but even a project manager needs clear instructions so that they can go manage a project, right? But delegating is a skill in itself. It's an art. I used to teach a class, The Art of Delegating, and it is really an art of going back to communication and clarity on every step of the way, so that whoever you're delegating to, there are no questions asked. And it goes back to vision. So all of this aligns, right? And so when you want to delegate a task or start to think about that, it could be anything. Like, I mean, maybe, but having a housekeeper, that's delegating the house stuff. Well, would you, maybe, I guess, I don't know, but I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody to just come into the house for the first time and not know exactly what I wanted, right? You typically have to be there to instruct them. This is where I fold the stuff. This is what I do. Here's a little bit of this, da, 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 da. So there's always delegating in there so that people, if you want people to do it the way you want it to be done. Going back to what I said a little while ago, is if you don't know a process or a system and you hire someone as a consultant or a strategist, then they could come in here and give you all of those steps, right? They could build that for you. But until then, it's you. It's you. And so proper delegation, when we're talking about business tasks, then the few things I do is because people learn different ways, right? So number one is I create a step-by-step instruction, like including URLs, passwords. Like, I just don't say, I need you to go do this. I used to do that. And trust me, I still do that. We still catch myself, but my team knows better now. And they'll come back and say, I don't have all the information to do this right. And I'm like, okay, I'll get it done tonight and send you the stuff. Like, I want my team. Here's what I've learned over time. Yes, can I throw it at them? Sure. Am I going to get it done in the time frame I want? No. Is it going to get done exactly how I want? No, because I'm just throwing it at them. I'm not being clear. If I don't care how it gets done, then I can throw it at them and just be like, I don't care. I got no expectations. Go figure this out, right? But most of the time, if we have a vision and we've done our strategic thinking, then we need to communicate all that to them. And if we don't, then what happens? We're frustrated, we're disappointed. Oh my God, the amount of times I hear people say they're disappointed or frustrated in their business because of, guess what? It's because of you. And I hate to be the bearer of bad things, but so thinking about that, it's just that the ability of like either learn those skills, right? Or delegate them off to someone else. So I create a step-by-step, and then I usually will do a video tutorial. If it's something simple, I won't, but oftentimes I just want to give them, and one of the reasons I do video tutorials as well is I also want them to see my energy and my passion behind something. And it gives me an opportunity to like explain the steps. Okay, when you go to step 7, this is what you're going to do. And I need you to make sure you capture XYZ. It's all written there, but it also shows them a visual of how I am doing this, how I'm how my vision of this looks like. And so creating a video for them, I probably implemented that way too late in my business. And so I want to say maybe like, we always did them, but we only did them for like bigger projects or trainings. But we didn't do like 2-minute 5-minute videos just to show something that seems so simple, right? That I just gave you these steps. When I started doing that, maybe like 7 years ago, I can't remember. I don't get that many questions anymore from my team. They can go rock and roll with it. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a ping, saying it's done. And here's the tip here, though, is when I go back and I look at it and there's something that was missed, I then go back in my instructions, and it's usually missed in my instructions. So I take full accountability, which is one of the things on here, for probably most of the time that my team doesn't do something exactly the way I need it done, or, whoever it is. It was my lack of clarity 95% of the time. If you have a good team, right? So, and other than that, and then the other thing is when delegating, we also have to be open and allow people the comfort to come back and ask questions. Because sometimes as business owners, believe it or not, we are intimidating. And we're intimidating to employees or contractors, or unless we're hiring higher paid people who are at our level, just in other skill set, they're not going to be intimidated, more than likely. But when we're hiring teams or working with, a virtual assistant or an executive assistant or somebody, right? They have to feel comfortable to come back and ask questions, because that's the other place I failed a lot too. So things would not get done right because they didn't feel comfortable coming to ask me. And so they give it back to me. And then I was like, oh, I was frustrating because they didn't do what I asked them to do. But when I dove down deeper, if they really felt comfortable with asking me, they would have. They wouldn't have just assumed, because I wasn't always available for them to ask me questions. And so now we use systems in place that allow communication and all that. And actually, I can show you a little bit when we go through this list, if time permits. Okay, so I'm going to do a whole class on delegation down the road and show you. I even created an ebook years back, and taught it for a long time. And so I'll do a special one on that because I think it's important. Having empathy is one, and not too much empathy though, too, where as business leaders, like I've done that too, where I'm like so empathetic to everybody. And then now I'm the one doing everything or cleaning up everybody's messes, or sometimes the opposite, when we're too empathetic, that also means lack of holding boundaries and for ourselves. And I've reached burnout because of being empathetic too. But there is a level of empathy to understand that we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all have different learning curves. Just because, and here's the thing, when it's in our mind, we've rehearsed it over and over and over again. Other people haven't, and other people don't really know what you want unless you've said it 1,000 times. And even if you've posted it on social media, we don't see all the stuff. And again, we went back to communication. Nobody's really paying attention, right? Attention to detail. People aren't reading, listening to everything people are saying. So, we also have to have that empathy to understand that that's the culture where, that's kind of where we're in. We're all getting pulled into so many directions, and being able to have that empathy and patience to be an impactful leader is important. Continuing learning, I talked about a lot of the stuff I do. I have 2 conferences coming up. I'm sending, Alejandra's going to a tech conference this week. And so I went to one in January, and I might do another one I think in July, there's another. So continual learning, like never stop learning, and also learn things that make you uncomfortable. That is like, anytime you feel discomfort, that right there is a sign that you need to push through some resistance or some fear or some scarcity. And so continual learning as a leader is absolutely important. Accountability, I touched on that just a little bit, but it's so important. I probably out of, I don't know, probably like 80% of the business owners that I've worked with at some time or not don't take accountability for the things that happen, or the things that go wrong in their business. And I'm here to tell you again, if it goes right, yeah, woohoo, we want all the accountability on that. But if it goes wrong, even if it's somebody else's mistake. That was another question somebody asked me. Is it my fault if somebody else made a mistake? And I'm like, yeah, it is, because you are the business owner, you are the leader. And so it is up to you to go clean that up and to work with that person and to make sure that those type of things don't happen again. And, taking accountability for everything, for how you communicate, for how you train, for everything. Like, the more accountable you can be, the more you're going to learn and the more open. Accountability is the ego check, right? Put it on the side and be like, okay, where did I go wrong in this process that went wrong? Where did I go wrong in not hitting a target or a goal or whatever? And being wrong doesn't mean that you're wrong. For me, finding my failures is so important to be able to have more successes. So understanding how I failed at something, which for many, many, many years, I was like, heck no, I don't want to fail. The more I stuck to not failing, the harder I failed eventually. Maybe it wasn't, and those failures ended up happening after having big wins. Like it was so frustrating. And I realized that I have to allow for failure. I have to allow my team to fail, because that's how we grow. How do you gain more knowledge? I mean, yes, you can go get education and training, right? Continual learning, but unless you apply it, and then when you apply it, if it works, beautiful, but there's not always learning unless something goes wrong and you're like, oh my God, I got to fix this. And you get to dive deeper into your business and figure out where are the gaps, where are the areas I need to improve. So failure is your opportunity to improve, to grow, to expand, to learn, all of that. So that accountability kind of ties into that, because you're accepting failure sometimes, as well as, the things that go right. But we don't have a problem being accountable for all the wins, right? That's so easy. I want to be accountable for all the wins. Take the losses too, that they will teach you so much more. Okay, so then on the list, we have positive attitude. That was just something, no matter what, coming in with a positive attitude is always going to create a win, even in a negative situation, right? Negative situation, you gotta just check out that negative stuff and come in with that positive attitude. How am I going to make this better? How can I see this? How can I see it for what it really is and not what it feels like? Because there's always a deeper meaning in everything. And so when you can come in there with that positive mindset, you're going to be more resilient. That's part of the emotional intelligence. You're going to be able to see things that you can't see if you're frustrated and locking down and, being like, if you ever catch yourself nodding your head in a conversation, that's your cue to your body. Like, you're telling your brain, don't get this. You're not saying get this. Like, sometimes it's just like, even if you don't get it, like, go, yes, yeah, rather than like, and if you catch yourself moving backwards a little, know that you're moving away from it as opposed to getting forward. So when, things don't feel so great, move into it. Bring your face and your chest inward. These are all NLP techniques as well, to like change the way our mind. And NLP, I'm sorry, for those that don't know, neuro-linguistic programming, I'm also certified in that. That was a 3-week training I did a year and a half ago, 2 years. And it was just amazing. Tony Robbins teaches NLP in everything he does. So going to that certification, it just gave me the deeper understanding of what I had been learning throughout all these years. So it's really awesome. The other thing is, watch where your hands are. If you're in a conversation and your hands are crossed, this is your body language and your body cue to, well, we don't want to know this. So if you're wondering why you're not grasping something or into it, you want to make sure that your arms are not crossed. And that happens to me sometimes. I'll catch myself and I think about it and I'm like, no, I'm not wanting to know this, right? My hands are crossed and I'm like listening, but it also is that block right there. So you're not going to fully grasp everything that's coming through, because your body language is so much part of being a leader and all of this. So, it's a mindset and the body and the spirit, right? And so the spirit that we bring into it, the body that we bring into it, talk about, body, and the healthier we are, the better we do as business owners. When we're not as healthy, we are not that great of leaders. That's just the bottom line, because you've got brain fog and, unhealthy eating patterns, and just creates a whole other, side of things. Decisiveness, this is another thing that I see a lot, and I know I struggled and I do still struggle, but I make so many decisions in a day that sometimes I just don't want to make decisions. I don't want to. And so I am wishy-washy, and I'm okay with that. Like, I've decided that for certain things, I don't care. But then I really have to not care. I really have to just let other people, because, it's really funny how they'll say, somebody will say, oh, I don't care where we go. And they go, okay, we're going to go this place. Oh, I don't want to go there. Okay, then decide where you want to go, right? And so being able to make that decision, be decisive is so important. I see that in so many entrepreneurs where it's like, well, I don't know if I should do this, or I don't know if I should do that. Well, you're sending a message to your nervous system, to your brain, to everything, that we don't know anything, because we don't know, and we keep saying, I don't know. So you can flip that by saying, if I did know, I would do this. Okay. Well, what if I did know? Okay, if I did know, I do this. There you go. You have a decision now. And also, like, being clear. This ties clarity too. Once you make a decision, stick to it and measure it. You don't want to like jump ship right away. You want to see it through if you did make that decision, unless it totally was a bad decision and you need to pivot and do something else. But, try to stick through your decisions, because as a leader, if we're changing too much, like, I'm an advocate for change. I love change. Like, I thrive in change. Give me new and I'm like, woohoo, really happy. But not everybody is. And so, the other downside of that is you're constantly wanting to do new things, which, that shiny object syndrome that some of us have, that plays a role into that. So, but when you make a decision, like, make that decision. And sometimes people think I'm a hard ass, because I will come to them if they're like that, and I'll say, well, just decide, make a decision. That doesn't mean you have to decide on something big. That the decision could be, I'm going to decide to wait a week to make that decision. That's a decision. You've chosen, instead of staying in a limbo situation, sending every part of our brain, body, mind that message that we don't know, right? So turning that around will help in the leadership. And then lastly, and there's so many more, I only put 12 on here. I did I think like a 20-week master, 20, 30-week one, where I went through each a different like category of leadership, and they were like 30-minute sprints, and there were so many different things on there. But adaptability was the last one to make it on the top 12. And that is, when things don't go our way, we have to be able to adapt, right? To sometimes environments won't permit some of the things we want to do. Sometimes, for instance, I'm in Mexico, and I'm back in Mexico, and I'm so happy, and my internet goes down very often, and it's so frustrating. But I know if I want to live here and be right by the beach and enjoy the Mexico life, that the internet's going to be choppy sometimes, and the lights go out often. And sometimes for, like the last one was, I think, a month ago, and they were out for 2 days. And so you lose your food and all that kind of stuff, right? But you have to be adaptable. I'm living somewhere where those things can happen. But even in business, like, if our team isn't like, meeting deadlines or your expectations, and this is a problem. Sometimes us as leaders have expectations that aren't realistic with everyone else. So you may have a certain expectation, and that goes back to clarity, communication, vision, and that your expectation doesn't meet. And so oftentimes we have to adapt to be able to then, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and get everybody aligned again. Or maybe you have to change your expectations. So that's the adapting to it. I know many, many times in my career, I've had to, not launch something. We launched Pipeliner this year. Do you know that it's been 4 years that I've wanted to launch that? I've had that system that I've been paying for and building for 4 years, because, for one, my whole team wasn't ready to take it on, and I was too busy to do it. And here I was trying so hard on the side to launch this, and it just wasn't going to work. So I had to be adaptable to continue to do the other things to keep business going until the moment was, and then I was ready, right? I was like, let's go. And so we do have to, and that could be very heartbreaking times and frustrating when we can't do everything we really want in the time frames we want to. But a superpower is to be adaptable. So I hope all of those were helpful in terms of talking about leadership and, some of the things it takes us. Let me see. I'm going to see if I had anything else on my slides. Talked about active listening when we go back to communication. That was that. So I normally like to end a lot of my master classes with action items. So I want to ask you all to look at that list and score yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 for each one of those. Where do you rank at those? And the other part would be look at that first. Where do you rank now? Look at those and see which of those do you need to be able to achieve the goals and dreams that you have. And if they rank low, then put a plan together on how you're going to improve. What are you going to do? What are the ways? Are you going to take a course? Are you going to get a mentor? Are you going to hire a coach? Are you going to, do your own research and study? Like, how are you going to lift those characters or traits, things so that you can be the most effective leader? And maybe there's stuff on there that I didn't put on there that resonates. Add your own things to that list and make a plan to be an impactful leader. Make a plan to be ready to more, right? And I say impactful, you are already an impactful leader, but we have to raise the bar. So wherever you are in the bar, I want you to think about putting it up. I like to lift weights and have it in a few minutes, but they have the racks. And so how are you going to get to that next level on the rack so that you can up level your leadership? And you never stop up leveling your leadership ever. When you get here, there's still more room. Get up on the ladder and continue to raise that rack, because as a leader, I just believe it's our job always to continue our leadership, and to continue to grow as a leader, and especially if we're growing teams or growing people or working with others or just interacting with people. Come on, we need to do that. So I will leave it there. I will say that the next one is our next class is in an hour from now at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's going to be a Pipeliner overview. That's the system that we use for our business to, manage a lot of it. And so I'm going to do an overview on all of the things. So those of you that want to see everything, I'm just going to go through. There isn't going to be a specific training in a specific module. I just want to going with leadership and that flow. I want to show you as a leader what is possible. And that's all it's going to be about, what is possible. And then later on at 2 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going to show you Ruby AI again and what the possibilities are with that to use with your business to help you grow. So that is all I have. I will check the Facebook if anybody who is in the Zoom has any questions or wants to come off mute. Feel free. All right, I do see some here. Perfect. Communication is vital. Also an operations director with the essentials in my success. Yes, Naomi, I hope you're still here. I wasn't focused on the comments until right now. It's just spinning for you. Oh, I hope you got it. I have mastered being a strategist for others and now needing to shift this for my own business. That is so powerful. Let me tell you, oh God, you have no idea. Naomi, you nailed it. If you have done strategy or been in that for others, it can be challenging to do it for yourself. I found that. I found that even when I am building my own business and have clients that I'm doing their strategy and consulting, I prioritize and they have massive growth. And I'm like, I don't have that same growth for me. And that's why this has shifted for me so much right now, in that it's time for me to apply what I've been doing for businesses for 20 years to grow mine to the levels that I grew theirs. And so that is so awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And so it's time for all of us to be our own strategists. So worksheet, get some structure to learn and tackle Pipeliner. Which worksheet, Camille? Where's the worksheet you were talking about? I don't know if I talked about that one on this one. Pipeliner will be at 12. Today was an overall grace mode. Oh, you're talking about the screen I shared. Let me share it really quick again and see if that's it. And you can take a screenshot again. Oops, hold on a second. Where's my canvas? Sorry, I probably shouldn't have showed you all the mess here. Just taking it from this one. So that was the list of some of the skills and traits. So go ahead and grab a screenshot of that. And yeah, hopefully that was it. And I'll share some more things as we go through. I've got lots of tools and stuff like that oh, sorry, you were driving. Okay, we'll get you a screenshot. Or it'll be on the replay too. So you can go back to this section in there and then just go grab the screenshots. Cool. And awesome. Well, you said it was 5 point. Got it. Yep. Sweet. All right, everyone. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll stick around for a little bit longer, or if anybody wants to say anything, I figured out this morning, I finally took the time to be able to stream straight into, Facebook had made changes to the live streaming, but now you can do it through Zoom. You just have to do a couple things set up. So in the future, I'll play some music like I did this time and just give me a few minutes to plug in some things so that we could stream live, but really excited to be doing this. So, all right, I'll see you all in an hour, or whoever wants to come. I'll be back on Facebook Live and the Zoom room. If you want to come in and be live in the Zoom room and ask questions live, you absolutely can. Just post that you need the link or go to mysystemsforsuccess.com. And there's 3 different classes that you can sign up for. And they do have 3 different links on there for the different Zoom rooms. So awesome. All right, everyone. It was a pleasure. And I'll be back online in an hour. Okay, so where am I in Mexico? Crystal, Rosarito Beach.